We'll go ahead and get the meeting started. Let's start with roll call.
Ben Keel.
Michelle Otto.
Lloyd Johnson. Henry.
And
Jeff Doctor.
And let's go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you need to add, did you say, Deb?
I need to add a couple meetings to the agenda under item 12. So when you approve the agenda, we need to add a canvassing board meeting, which will happen on Tuesday of your regular meeting, November 13th. We'll meet at 6:45, all of us, to do that. And then we need to add a city council workshop for November 26th at 4 o'clock in the City Hall conference room to finalize the year 2019 budget and levy.
What time did you say? 4?
4 o'clock.
If that
That
was
was at 26.
Will that work for everybody?
Was it
Ben,
the 26th.
Councilmember
That's
Peel, can
good.
you make that?
Is that Friday after Thanksgiving?
That's a Monday.
Oh, Monday? Yes, that's fine. I just,
Yeah, that's right, 25th.
yeah, the 26th is fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, then we will need approval of the agenda.
We'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the 2 added meetings.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Move on to the consent agenda. Any questions? Motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Do we have anything for open forum? Nope. Wright County Sheriff's Office? Not here. And let's go with Mr. Tillman.
Mayor Otto, council members, thank you for the opportunity to come before the city council. I've been to the Hanover City Council meeting, the Buffalo City Council meeting, and worked out that you rescheduled this meeting because I was trying to hit 2 meetings on the same night. So I appreciate the opportunity to address the board, the council. I am here to talk about the operating referendum for the Buffalo-Hanover-Montrose School District. The Buffalo-Hanover-Montrose School District serves 157 square miles and about 33,000 residents within our boundaries of our school district. We range from the northeast corner, which is, it crosses over Highway 94 as you're going between the Rogers exit and the new 610 on-ramp the Buffalo School District crosses over at the Brockton Lane area, kind of give you that range. And then we're just outside of Watertown to the south. And we border with Howard Lake Waverly Winstead School District, about a mile and a half outside of Montrose on Highway 12, between Montrose and Waverly. That's our border right there. And we go north all the way up to Monticello, and then east through St. Michael, Albertville, and then we touch borders with Elk River, Anoka, Hennepin, and Osseo School District. To the south, or to the east and the south, we border with Delano and Rockford school districts. So that's kind of the geographic area. Tonight I wanted to talk to you about our operating referendum that is going to be on the ballot for November 6th, next week, Tuesday. We've provided an opportunity for community members to come in and hear a full presentation. That presentation has been uploaded to our district's website, and it takes about 35 minutes to go through all of the different areas. I'm going to take just a few minutes and talk about the key points of this operating referendum. The board's goals are to help lower class sizes, address school safety through personnel and infrastructure, and then expand middle school opportunities, as well as addressing special education funding deficit. When we talk about the lowering class sizes, we have targets, and that's in this document here that all residents received in the Insider. That's our newsletter. But we have targets at elementary and middle and high school. So the targets at elementary are 22 to 1 or fewer. In kindergarten, 24 to 1 or fewer. In first and second grade, 26 to 1 or fewer. In third grade, 28 to 1 or fewer. In fourth and fifth grade, and then 30 to 1 or fewer in the high school and the middle school. Currently, we just had a presentation and class size report at the October 22nd board meeting. And at that meeting, we talk about all of the class sizes throughout the district. Currently, we have 10 classrooms in elementary that exceed those targets, and 88 sections in the middle school exceed those targets, and 123 sections at the high school. We are with the hopes that we can continue to lower class sizes. We've made some adjustments already. Over the last several years, we've been able to, the board is really focused on providing lower class sizes and made some investments through spending down the existing fund balance. That's our savings account. So in 2012, we added 2 positions. In 2013, we were able to add 6 positions, and that's because we kept the stimulus dollars from the recession over time, and we were able to add 6 positions, 6 teaching positions. And then in 2015, we had another injection of funding through the location equity revenue. We added 6 more positions at that time. In 2016, we were able to add a half FTE or full-time equivalent teaching position. And then going into this year, we added 2 more teaching positions. Now that doesn't include what the district hired a elementary teacher for first grade at Hanover, because we wanted to address the large class size, 29 in a first grade classroom. And then at Northwinds, we added another section right the last week of August, open house. We still had students enrolling in kindergarten at Northwinds. And then just last week, we hired a new teacher at Montrose Elementary because we were sitting in 32 in a 4th grade class. These numbers don't include that. The district has now begun to spend down its fund balance. We built it up over several years, and We are now experiencing, we dipped into the fund balance or the savings account, $1.3 million. In the last year, we approved the board has approved a $2.8 million deficit going into the next year. Again, intentionally, because we built up the fund balance, but now we're projecting that by 2020, we'll fall below the district's fund balance policy. We have an 8 to 12% window that we hold our fund balance at. We're above that currently, and we'll dip below it. We know that if we can have lower class sizes, we'll have an ability to create relationships with our students because we'll have lower numbers. Teachers will get to know their students better. As I said, we are exceeding our targets currently. When we talk about safety and security through personnel and infrastructure, we're talking about mental health issues. And what we're trying to look at there is to hire staff to address mental health issues. Social workers, counselors, psychologists. Again, all of these are going to be, we're not saying that we're going to add 25 teachers at the high school or 10 teachers in Montrose. Everything's going to be judicious. We're going to continue to make investments as we can because this has to last us 10 years, over that 10-year time frame. But we do know that if we can have lower class sizes, we'll have better relationships, which will help us to identify potential mental health issues within the classrooms. And then again, we're not going to say that we're going to hire 7 counselors or 6 social workers. We're going to hire them as needed as we feel that we can best meet the needs of our students. We're going to also want to address some infrastructure needs, and you might be saying, well, didn't you just pass a bond in 2014? We did. At that time, safety and security that was listed as our needs were the entries. We had a more secure entry at Montrose Elementary, at Parkside Elementary and Northlands Elementary. We didn't have that same entry at Hanover, at Tatonka Elementary, or Discover Elementary. So that was really the crux of what we were looking at and making those investments, security cameras, those types of things. We've since put in a video intercom at all of our buildings, so you can't gain access unless you bring into the office and you're allowed to come into the building. But we're also looking at, with the infrastructure, we're really looking at putting on 3M film, that's a bullet-resistant film, on the first floor of every single building. That's changed. That was not part of our conversation in 2013 when we were looking at this. We've had Homeland Security come in, we have the county come in, we have Buffalo PD come in to talk about our safety and security procedures, and we've gone through this process. Again, these were not talked about. We had a horrific event in February of last year. We addressed it. The mayor was part of it in March of 2018 of this past year, where Mr. Mischke, our high school principal, invited the students to come in instead of having there was a talk about having a national walkout. He said, let's walk in and come into the gym. He had a 17-minute presentation, 17 seconds of silence, and then at the end of the day, during the Bison time, students were able to come down to the Performing Arts Center and have a conversation with Mayor Otto, with our county sheriff, with the Buffalo Police Chief. We had Marion O'Neill there, Senator Anderson, our school board members, myself, and Mr. Mischke, our high school principal. At that time, we heard from students and their concerns about safety and security. At the end of the 20 minutes, students were released to go to the buses, and I had a student walk up to me and ask, deaf hard of hearing student, asked me about could we have lights in buildings or in the hallways to indicate whether or not we were in a crisis situation or a lockdown situation, because she said she couldn't hear the announcements. She couldn't hear if we were in a lockdown. I didn't even know that was something that we could look at, or if it was a possibility. Asked our Director of Buildings and Grounds to look into it. He said, yes, that is something that can tie into the system where we hit the button and it indicates throughout the building. So those are the types of things that we're looking at. You might say, hey, didn't the state just set aside $25 million for safety and security? They did. And the state asked us to apply for that. It was through a grant. They had high priority items and low priority items. They arbitrarily determined which those were. We only applied for the high priority items. Out of the $25 million that was set aside, $12.5 million was set aside for the 11 county metro area, and $12.5 million for all the other counties in the state of Minnesota. We submitted by building, which is required instead of by district. You had to submit by building. We submitted $1.3 million worth of requests. And the state, out of the $25 million set aside, received $250 million worth of requests. We had one school selected, and it was Montrose. And so now we're working with Montrose, a $50,000 grant, and trying to figure out how do I do something in Montrose that I can't do it in Montrose without doing it in all the other buildings throughout the district. So those are a couple of the things that we're talking about in the infrastructure piece of it. Middle school schedule, we're looking at that within this document. We have a 6-period day. If you look at, this is a sample of what those schedules are. Right now, when students need remediation or intervention, we cannot provide that during the day because of the structure of the schedule without pulling them out of English or social studies or music or a physical education class. We have the core subjects and the subjects we have to provide by statute, and we need to have a different schedule. Mr. Lubin, our middle school principal, has been researching this for 6 years. His staff have been part of that in earnest the last 3 years. They presented it to the board, but we know that it's not possible without additional funding, and that funding is in the form of 7 additional staff members to take for that to be able to happen. It also provides opportunities for students within the schedule. We could look at ag classes or FFA. We would be able to look at robotics, Project Lead the Way engineering focus, world languages as an opportunity for students to have an experience with those. And then the final area is the special education deficit. Public Law 94-142 was passed in 1974. It allowed for students with special needs to enter into the public schools for the first time in 1974. It was reauthorized as IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Act, and through those reauthorizations, they have not provided the funding that goes with the reauthorizations. And at the time that we printed these documents, our special education deficit, they call it a cross subsidy, the underfunding was $4.8 million on an annual basis, about $760 per pupil unit. About 3 weeks ago, I found out that has changed, and that deficit grew by $1.1 million. We provide services for students who are special needs from birth to 21 by federal law. From birth to 21, we provide, it could be occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech language therapy, all educationally related services. 3 to 5, they come into our buildings and they're integrated into preschool. K-12, they're integrated into the classrooms. And then our PRIDE program is a transition program for 18 to 21-year-olds as they take the next step in their lives. That is an overview of our referendum proposal. Some people are saying, why so much? I think if you look at this graph of this timeline, you can see the last time we had a voter-approved increase in the operating referendum was in 2002. The district went out to voters in 2007, asked for an increase. It was rejected. Went out in 2008. It was rejected. At that time, the district chose to renew the 2000 referendum in 2009, and then renew the 2002 referendum in 2011. And haven't had an increase in the operating referendum since 2002. Inflation over that same time has gone up. I looked at CPI, the Consumer Price Index. It has gone up 33.5% in 16 years. The districts did get new money over that same 16-year period, but we received 25.1% increase over that same time frame. So we're still about 8.4% below inflation that we fight on an annual basis as we move forward. I will stop there and see if council members or mayor, if you have any questions regarding the operating referendum.
I do not. This is the third one.
So,
Yep. Do you guys have any questions?
Yes, I got a question. No, this goes out, I got no offense over anybody learning anything. Everybody needs an education.
Yep.
Okay, now you got senior citizens out here in Montrose, Buffalo, Hanover, and all over. They're under fixed income and everything like that, and medicine is going up, and you never get a raise in Social Security to cover anything, and what you do get a raise in Social Security, Medicare takes it away from you. Now, it'd be nice if something could be done some way that the senior citizens would know what would be going on or what their taxes are going up, because since the year of 2018 to now, seniors over 65 years old, well, 204% have filed bankruptcy already. And I don't think it's fair to a lot of seniors that really worked hard in their life, and some of them sitting in a house and they're gonna end up losing their house over this tax increase and stuff like that.
I don't know, Mr. Henry, I can answer the question of this is the only venue that school districts have to put it forward, but I do know that there are state property tax refunds that are available, and the annual income must be less than $108,000, and it's called a circuit breaker refund. I'm not an expert on it, but I do know that exists, and the maximum refund is $2,660. That's available. There's a special property tax refund, where if there's an increase of 12%, of more than 12%, and it's $100 or more over the prior year, you can receive a refund fund from the state. And then there's a senior citizen property tax deferral portion that is available. Again, I know of these. We present these at a taxation hearing, and I'm not going to give any tax advice or anything like that. I just know that.
I know some of them things you're saying right there. I checked in on a few of them things, and they really jack you around. You'll come and say, oh, you're approved for this, you're approved for that. You turn around and say, oh, we can't help you. But I know some people are senior citizens and they're only getting about $800 a month, and you figure your light bill and your garbage, and you got to put food on the table and pay for your medicine and everything like that. I feel sorry for a lot of seniors out there, and some of them, I know, I'm one right now, but we bought some groceries for some people that couldn't afford it.
I understand. I wish I didn't have to do this.
I know where you're coming from, but everybody needs an education.
Yeah.
You got to have an education.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys have anything? No. Anybody out there have a question?
Well, I'll make a statement. I mean, it seems like the state has no problem passing all these unfunded mandates. And it's time that we lit the torches and storm the Capitol building in St. Paul.
If you'd like to be part of a group, take your name. We belong to an organization called Schools for Equity in Education. And they are looking at funding schools equitably throughout the state. Skiing versus the state of Minnesota back in the early 90s was a Buffalo, Hanover, Montrose school board member. and it talks about equity in education. But we're always looking for folks to join us at the Capitol because, yeah, this is my 17th year as a superintendent, and I've been at the Capitol every single year talking about these issues year after year.
Has there been any thought into a sliding scale referendum where you're not asking for it all at one time? You know, if you manage money properly over the years, you know, it should be less of an impact if somebody gets a tax increase that's a slight increase, but, you know, I'm looking at $550, right?
Yeah.
That's hard to pull to swallow. I mean, but I'm retired too, you know, and I don't get a 25% or 30% increase in my social security or my pension. So, you know, it's tough. I don't know if
we have our tax rate, the net tax capacity rate has gone down for the last 4 years. And the way I understand it, it's that rate that gets applied to whatever the value of the property is. And so I don't believe there's a sliding scale other than the value of that property.
no, but I mean, over the years, instead of asking for it all at one time,
Sure.
you calculate you know, look out in the future and say, okay, here's what we're going to need in 10 years. And then,
And that's, I think what we, you know, the last time we went out was 2007 and 2008, and thought maybe the economy would change or things would happen where we would grow and that might help us in our financial situation. We've been very frugal, actually growing the fund balance, and then intentionally started to spend it down. We hadn't gone out, but our enrollment has remained flat, and so that's the effect that it has.
2007, 8 was a bad time to ask for
I know. And what we found, this is my 9th year with the Buffalo Hanover Montrose School District, and I was in Kimball for 4 years and Albany for 4 years before I joined the Buffalo Hanover Montrose School District, and I was cutting in Kimball for 4 straight years because it was hitting those communities already then because they weren't seeing the growth, and Buffalo was. They were seeing 100 to 200 student increase each and every year for all the way up until about 2007 when the recession hit.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is the state needs to reassess its priorities.
The Constitution addresses education in Article 13, Section 1. None of the other than transportation, are mentioned in the state's constitution. So all of the other items that are part of the state's budget are not in the state's
I
constitution.
think health and human services is probably number one.
Yeah, and so we don't know what we get. The school districts don't know what they're going to receive until they go into the biennium and the legislative session. There's no automatic increase. There is one for special ed, but it's not even keeping up with the demands. Thank you.
Chris?
Hi, how are you? A couple of questions in regard to the general fund. So the 8%, I'm just a little cloudy on the 8%. Is 8% of the original balance? So we need to be within 8 to 12% of the original balance? What is the magic number?
It's 8 to 12% of the general education fund.
Oh, so the total budget to pay for everything, the whole 9 yards, the savings account has to keep 8 to 12%?
Yes, because
Gotcha.
if it goes negative 2.5%,
Yes.
districts are in statutory operating debt.
So you're basically bankruptcy.
The state comes in
Gotcha.
and makes you make cuts.
So by 2020, we are in real jeopardy of getting below the 8%. In fact, you're all pretty good at forecasting since you're within 0.1% on your forecasting.
Yep.
So pretty confident that maybe less than 8% by 2020, if not soon.
That's the projection right now.
Okay. How many years have we been dipping into the general fund?
We dipped in about 4 years ago, and then we were able to put money in the savings account or the fund balance for about 3 straight years. And then we spent down last year intentionally, and we're spending down this year intentionally.
Gotcha. And that's because we needed a 4th grade teacher, right?
It's the 18 additional teachers that we've made, that we've hired since 2010.
And so
So we have to keep those, we want to continue to have those teachers moving forward.
And we're still down net 22, is that right? 22
Yeah,
teachers.
from the 2008, 2007 cuts, we've got $3 million. We've got 40 teachers, administrators, some administrators, and support staff during that time.
Gotcha. All right. Net 22. Go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any copies of those credits for senior people there?
I made a copy, but I'll give you this. I'll leave this with you, and I can get more of those copies. I don't have a lot of those, I just brought them with me in case somebody asks a question. I feel like I have to have my file down to make sure I answer.
Mr. Tillman,
Yes, sir.
does the current projections take into consideration this year's 33% increase in inflationary pressures? So we had a forecast of 2%. Outside of anyone's control, it's at 2.9% on inflationary pressures.
CPI.
Thank you. That I work in the public sector. It's not going to stop. Inflation is still going to continue. What you're referring to is that the district did get 2% increase in funding this year. But as of July of this summer, the 2018, CPI was at 2.9%. It's not going to be at 2.9% in December. It'll be higher. So the inflationary impact that we have is we're meeting about 2/3 of what it was in July. But when you go back to 2002, the increase of 33.5% versus the increase of funding of 21.5 or 25.1%, we still have an 8.4% gap on top of any gap that we're going to have this year as we finish out the year. So the only way really to ensure that we remain above the 8% threshold, should this referendum not pass, cuts are going to have to come from somewhere. I'm not going to put you in a position where you have to say where from, but the district is literally going to have to cut something.
Absolutely.
In order to begin.
It won't be special education though, because it's federally mandated.
Right.
But the board will most likely direct me and administration to find one-time cuts and then programs and personnel.
This isn't a company, this is a school district, but everybody still collects a paycheck. So in a company, the largest pot of money goes to personnel.
Yeah,
That'd probably be the same for a school district?
Yep, about 80% or a little higher is all personnel related. It's paraprofessionals, it's custodians, it's teachers, about 400 teachers in the district. It's secretaries, it's support staff throughout the system.
Gotcha. So after the school district cuts, maybe some of the easier things. Personally speaking, I haven't had cable in 5 years. It was one of the things that we cut to make some life choices for our family.
I don't have cable either.
Yeah.
And school districts don't have it either. We're supposed to get it for free, and the cable companies give us one box for the whole district.
That goes in the lunchroom. So anyway, after the school district, and having been around Montrose, it's lean. It's a lean building. Plenty of volunteer hours going into that from parents that can or choose to volunteer their time. Where I'm heading with this is, it doesn't seem as though we can cut another box of crayons or pencils or pens. It seems as though the next step is going to be personnel, because that's the largest pot of money, especially if this referendum doesn't go through. You don't have to say yes or no, I'll just assume that's probably what's going to happen. Okay. Gotcha. To the city council members that are here, really, thank you very much for allowing Scott, or Mr. Tillman, to come in, and to the school for allowing him to come in as well. The question that maybe I'll just leave this with, because you're all just sitting there going, man, you really got to quiet down. The county, if we take into consideration that the average property value in the city of Montrose is $230,000. The county, based on the rate that Mr. Tillman was speaking about, everyone's going to pay in $7.98 extra per month, everybody in the county. Because the city is asking for, and what will be voted on the 26th, I believe, the city is asking for a 10% increase in taxes as well. To fund, we're looking at $10.97. And then the school on top of that. There's a really cool chart, should anyone want to read it, on the Montrose Politics site that can take individuals through those potential things. For anyone on the council that may be thinking no to the school referendum, you don't have to answer now. I would just ask you, what's your vote going to be for the city increase of 10%? I don't think any of us have a choice in the county. Just food for thought.
Anybody want to answer that one?
I'm going to, excuse me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Scott.
Thank you.
With that, you talked about going to the day of the Capitol.
Yes.
So, and what did you say that was? Schools for Equity and Education?
Schools for Equity and Education.
And so we're actually, we got Deb reaching out to Joe McDonald
Okay.
to do maybe a town hall here as well.
Okay.
Because I know that was a concern the other night. You know, people talked about it, and they're talking about it on social media. You know, the state has to get more involved and start giving up. So if Deb gets a hold and sees, you know.
I'd be happy to join.
Yeah, we'll let you know. And
Yeah, absolutely. We hold a legislative forum with cities that are part of the Buffalo Hannibal Montrose School District, and then there's something called MASICO. It's Meeker in Wright County Special Education Co-op, and they basically come down Highway 12. It's Rockford, Delano, Dassel, Cokato, all the way up to Litchfield, and then it picks up Annandale and Maple Lake, and they're part of that co-op. All the legislators from those areas, as well as the Sherburne Northern Right, which is Becker, Big Lake, Monticello, and St. Michael Albertville, come together with their legislators. Traditionally, Representative McDonald is there, Representative O'Neill, Representative Zerwas, Representative Lucero, Senator Anderson is always there, Senator Kiffmeyer is there. We've had Senator Osmick and Representative Hertas. I'm forgetting some of the other representatives. And we talked about these very issues. On how it has an impact on cities as well as school districts. And the relationships, the strong relationships that are required between cities, school districts, and making sure that we have equitable funding throughout the state, and the impacts that it has on cities and school districts outside the metro area, where there's a large industrial commercial property pool that they can collect taxes on. So I'd be happy to be part of that, and we'll post on our website a day at the Capitol, because they identify a day, and then we go down and meet with our legislators.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you again for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Appreciate it.
All right, moving on to reports from the city council.
I'll go ahead. I was attended Beyond the Yellow Ribbon meetings, fire department meetings, Montrose Day Celebration Committee meetings, and special council meeting.
All right, I attended, let's see, council meetings, Montrose Days meeting, Union, Park and Rec, the Halloween dance, community ed, which we'll talk about that later, and special council meetings, yeah.
All the council meetings negotiated on the contract. That's about it. Planning and zoning, but that was canceled last month.
You were on the panel.
Well, I'm sorry I missed the first council meeting and the first debate on council session and stuff like that. I was on vacation and it was not my idea, but the grandkids let me go to North Carolina and I got a chance to drive NASCAR and I'm really happy.
All right, Kevin.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. First is the September activity report. This is a long time ago. Any questions on that? Answer anything? Moving on is Fire Prevention Week. In October, from October 7th through October 13th this year, the National Fire Protection Agency puts on National Fire Prevention Week each year. This year, our firefighters were up here at the station pretty much all day Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. When all the students from Montrose Elementary School walked down, took a tour of the station, we gave them the message of fire prevention, taught them some stuff, let them climb around the trucks and everything as we do every year. This year, the message that's being put out to everybody is a message called Look, Listen, and Learn. Look for the top 3 causes of cooking fires in your home and try and prevent them. Listen, that kind of has to do with the smoke detectors. Make sure you're replacing your batteries, testing them monthly, everything along those lines. And to go with that, we have a supply of 9-volt batteries for anybody that needs them in the community. There's a box at City Hall, and I have about 12 more boxes in our station. So if you need any 9-volt batteries for smoke detectors, please seek us out or stop by City Hall.
Will you come change them too? I can't reach. Sorry, put you on the spot there.
I suppose we can. We have in the past with those who have problems, elderly, disabled, things along those lines. We've gone out and done before, so. But I guess we can. And then learn. That has to do with fire evacuation from your home. Make sure you have 2 ways out. Learn the best ways to keep your home so that it's fire safe, including sleeping with your doors closed, and all of those lovely things. So this message was pretty well taken by the kids and the community throughout the year, or throughout the week. So just kind of an update on that as I do every year. So. Next thing is to authorize an expenditure to purchase 3 replacement AEDs, an AED trainer, and AED computer software in the amount of $4,921. I have secured a local organization who's going to make a donation of $5,000 to offset that cost, but I need council approval to make the initial purchase before I move forward.
I'll make a motion to authorize you, Kevin, to go forward and purchase these 3 AEDs.
I'll second that.
All right, Roy. Ben.
Aye.
How about I and Lloyd?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
So realistically, it's no cost to our budget or anything.
No, I know.
Just gotta run through the hoops and stuff, so. Only other item on there is the resignation of firefighter Captain Craig Otto, effective September 10th. He was a captain under me for the last 3 years, I know, and he was a captain 2 years prior to that as well. He served with us for 8 years and 10 months. He recently moved from his residence to residence out by Coquito, making him no longer eligible to be on our department.
Make a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept Craig's resignation.
I'll second that. Ben.
Aye.
Lloyd.
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Motion passes 4-0.
And I'm happy to report, we have 5 people that have gone through the hiring process, and they'll just have to finish their medical evaluations here, and they should be on board in the next month or two, so
Any day 10
maybe a half of them.
possible?
Not really, but
That's
we'll
okay.
see. I gotta just take what I can get right now.
That's
so
right.
We'll deal with the times as they come, so. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Park and Rec. Matt is not here tonight, so I'll go over it a little bit. We had the Bark and Park event. It was good turnout. We had probably 10 or 12 dogs get licensed, so that's good. Breakfast with Santa, we discussed that, working with Montrose Days Committee to do the, what do we do, decorating of the ornaments. There was discussion about a park over in Forest Creek with Adam Myers, but he was not in attendance at the meeting, so they will be reaching out to him again. We talked about, Park and Rec talked about the Spark program and concerns on that, but the Spark program is still in place, Wendy. So it just wasn't very well, as many in attendance as normal.
I was gonna say, Todd didn't get back to me yet.
So yeah, I talked to them last week at Community Ed, so they only had about an average of 10, maybe 15 kids coming and going, so
Okay.
it didn't look as busy, so no, they still are.
What about the Facebook problem?
What was that? That was, oh, that is all taken care of. All the information for the Facebook Park and Rec page is given to Matt Russell and myself, so, yep.
So it's taken care of, right?
Yep, everything's all good, so, that's all we have for Park and Rec. Deb, planning, no. Yeah, planning and zoning.
First of all, I want to introduce our new seed planners that we've been working with. We have Mr. Miles Campbell they're both from Northwest Associate Consultants Incorporated, and then we have Mr. Steve Griffin. Really excited to have them on board, and Mayor and I have been working with them to get them up to date on everything that's going on with the city so that they can hit the ground running and get going on some of these businesses that are interested in coming to Montrose. So welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to hear it.
Next thing is the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting that we had in September, and I'll just give you a brief overview. We started out by talking about trying to find a facility to park larger vehicles such as semis or moving trucks or that type of thing, because they are not supposed to be on the streets and they're not supposed to be in people's driveways. So we are working with a business in town that already has plug-ins for that type of vehicle. So we're working with that because we do get calls at City Hall where people will say, I really want to buy a house here in town, but I have a semi or I have one guy had a big tow truck and our ordinance doesn't allow for that. So we really need to come up with something like that. And then Mayor Otto and I also met with Wright County, some of the Sheriff's Department officers, and they recommended that we look at this because other cities do the same thing. They have areas for these big vehicles to park. So we worked on that a little bit. We talked about, and Mr. Campbell will present it tonight, but we talked about the property at 111 Buffalo Avenue. He was going to move that building and it isn't feasible to do that, so he asked for a change in the variance that was issued a year ago and asked that he rebuild that building. And then he also asked for another year extension on that. And there are some, in the resolution, there are some actions that go with that, but I will have Mr. Campbell present that in just a little bit. We did talk about park dedication fees. We were given a sample from several cities, and the Planning and Zoning Commission linked what the city of Buffalo and Watertown had. So they asked the city planner to put something together using the formulas that they have. And I've already forwarded that information to Mr. Campbell and Mr. Griffin, so they will be putting something together. And then lastly, we just talked about some amendments that need to be made when it comes to our ordinance, our zoning and subdivision ordinance. So the planning commission members reviewed both of those ordinances and provided staff with what they'd like to look at as far as amendments. And some of it's just really kind of cleanup work. There's areas in the ordinance that it's just repeated over and over again, and they wanted to just see where it says at one time and what it affects. So it's just things like that. Just to make note, the Planning and Zoning Commission asked to change the November meeting. It was normally scheduled the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Some of them are going out of town, so we wouldn't have a quorum. So they asked to change it to November 14th, and that was on your consent agenda tonight, so we'll be having a meeting on Wednesday, November 14th. Any questions?
Places that I sent you to, locations and stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Campbell, you're up.
Sure. So Deb kind of covered the general idea of it. So this is not voting on a variance itself. This is a amendment to and an extension on that variance. The council does have to vote on an extension because it's past a period of 90 days. So what we're talking about here is 111 Buffalo Avenue South. The property itself right now is well within the setbacks that are required by the city, and you can see that on the second page of our memo on page 42, the required setbacks for the RB Residential Business District, which this is located in. And in this case, we're still going to see it being in encroaching on those setbacks, which is why the variance was initially granted in the first place. But what we're seeing is that the front yard setback is going from a 0-foot setback to 10.7 feet. And that's large for this because currently the building is encroaching on the public right-of-way. So this will fix that at least and bring it a little bit closer into compliance with that zoning district. And the other part of this is that this is an extension of a variance, and normally that is a staff matter if it's 90 days or less. But in this case, he's looking for a year, again, to allow for demolition and build time. And we have here the section from your guys' zoning ordinance, 1003-4B. Upon recommendation from the Planning Commission and City staff, the City Council may grant an extension of greater than 90 days, provided that it meets all of the conditions that are set in place for a shorter extension, but the extension does not exceed a single year from the initial expiration date, which was September 11th, 2018, and that the filing of a petition for extension is subject to fee requirements established by a City Council resolution, which would be tonight. So based on the fact that this was already voted on by and approved by the Planning Commission and our review of the facts of this case in the site review, we recommend approval of this, both the amendment and the extension, but we also have taken the conditions that the Planning Commission laid out at the last meeting, which include all of the conditions set aside in the initial variance resolution, as well as some added amendments here so that the demolition of the existing building site improvements is in accordance with the approved site plan that was initially provided for that first variance. The new building would be in the same building footprint of where the relocated would have been. The variance granted will allow a new building to be constructed on the subject property in accordance with the site plan and building plans attached as Exhibits C, and that all applicable building permits shall be obtained by the applicant prior to commencing the demolition of the buildings and construction of the new building. So this is not a building permit you're voting tonight. They would also have to go through all of the necessary permitting steps to begin with demolition and construction of that new building itself. And that this variance, again, it can't go longer than a year based on your zoning ordinance, so that this variance would expire on September 11, 2019, unless demolition of the existing building and construction of the new building is commenced following the issuance of a demolition and building permit by the city. That's about all the facts of the case, so we're more than willing to answer questions as best we can.
Does anybody have any questions?
No.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve that for said building extension variance for 1 year for a new building put up, and it'll look just about like what the other one would be, that's gonna be torn down.
I'll second that.
Ben,
Aye.
Roy,
Right?
Lloyd,
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Motion passes 4-0. Wayne.
Mayor and council, our 2 new maintenance workers are on board with us. They're learning their duties around town. Actually, both doing very well. And our 2 new pickups came in. And they're within our fleet now. And I'd also like to take the old Ford that we replaced, put the plow on it, put a price on it, put it up to City Hall and take sealed bids on it. Try to get rid of it. Try to get as much for it as we can.
Good idea.
Also, our plow truck's going to be in around the 15th of November. They called me today and said it was just about done. And we're also working on the assembling and putting up the solar guns. We've got the locates done, all we do is drill the holes. We get the state involved, they have to come out and inspect everything we do. So, that's about it.
All right. Any idea when you might be starting to put up that hockey rink? I keep bugging you on that, but
Well,
ground's gonna freeze soon.
we'll get it out.
Okay,
Yeah, that's better.
okay. New business. Discussion of adding a youth liaison to the city council. We had done this back in, were you here? You were here, right? 2014, 15? Something with Kirby.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Was it 2 years? Yes.
Yeah, it was a few years ago. So we reached out to the schools and with MEA, we haven't really heard nothing back yet, but I want to get council's input on this. I'd like to reach out to like grades 8 through 12, looking for like a boy and girl to come and be a part of the city council as a student liaison. I drafted up a few things for Deb to kind of look at and kind of rules and regulations. I don't think we put it in here though. No, we didn't put it in here, but, was that it? All right, if you guys want to look at that, I think it would be good to get students involved, as you clearly see with the all the referendums and all that kind of stuff too. It's good to get involved with the youth, have the youth give us a little bit of their input as to what they want to see, what direction they want to see the city. One of the possible points that they would look at is maybe implementing a project that they would like to see in the city too. Just want to get you guys' feedback on what you think. Should we go plan and move ahead, reach out to the schools? Like I said, grades 8 through 12, or if you guys are thinking 9 through 12, just high school.
I believe our youth liaison, they're able to be on there until age 21, if I'm not correct.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, as long as they're going to school.
Right, then, yeah, because Kirby was in college.
After they graduated, they could.
Yeah, okay. You have to get some sort of education.
Yes, Doug.
The school board is not here, but they always have a senior that sits in on the school board meetings and they do ask for their opinions on some issues, but they also present information on what's going on in the school.
In the schools, yeah.
Yes, for the rest of the school board that probably, and they can sometimes have, I don't want to use the word picky, but they talk about events that most of us would never hear of.
Right.
That's going on in the school.
Which, yeah, I think would be good for us to know and be, a little more involved. So, maybe. Yeah.
They have to be a Montrose resident, don't they?
Yes, yes.
We actually reached out to the school one other time too. So after Kirby was done, we did this. And I know they put it out on their school TVs where they do all their advertising and everything going on. And they ran it for about 2 or 3 weeks for us, and we got absolutely nobody to do it then either. So, I mean, I'm hoping maybe you'll get somebody this time, but I know they did try it once before too, and we didn't get anybody that responded.
Right, I mean, like I said, Deb has reached out to Mr. Lubin, and Mr. Lubin is the middle school principal, and Mr. Mishke is the high school principal. So she has reached out to them, but I'm thinking, because it is Montrose area, if we could reach out even on our city Facebook page or our city website, you know, to get, because there's a lot of parents here that are involved in the schools, very, as we can clearly see, very passionate parents, you know, and it'd be nice to get the kids' input, so I just want to get your guys' take on it.
Maybe even one from the middle school, one from the high school if you could, that way you
Get a little bit of information.
like
from
Doug
both.
said, that, yeah.
Yeah. So, they have very strong students' councils within the schools. We do now have our community ed, we have 2 girls that are student reps that come to our community ed meetings as well. So the kids are getting more involved, so I think it would be something to get. You're good? What do you guys?
Yeah, I think
Good? So are you okay with us advertising on our city webpage and then kind of sharing it through the community stuff too? Yeah? We don't need a motion. Do we need a motion? Or just a consensus?
You just direct us to.
Okay. That's just a step, so.
We're not going to be paid officials anyway.
We can absolutely do something, but, so I'll continue working with you, Deb, and we'll figure out what we can.
Well, I think one of the things that you could consider too is if you don't get anybody that's interested in it, in a former city that I worked in, we had them come on a regular basis and do a presentation of what's going on in the school, like quarterly. So it gets them at the meeting, kind of seeing what the meeting's about, and it also keeps you informed of what's going on in the school. So if we don't get anybody, that's another option.
Yep. All right. That's all we got. Upcoming meetings. Park and Rec's next meeting is November 5th at 5:30, City Hall. The next City Council meeting has been rescheduled to Tuesday, November 13th. Why didn't we do that?
Because of observation of,
Veterans Day.
yes.
Okay, all right. And then as we discussed, planning and zoning has also been rescheduled due to Thanksgiving. The canvassing board meeting, 6:45, the day of our council meeting, and a council workshop on the 26th at 4 o'clock to go over the budget, which anybody who wants to come and be a part of that, it is open to the public, so.
Just at City Hall.
And that's at City Hall, so.
I have one other thing too, Michelle.
Yep.
Just a reminder, November 6th is elections here at the community center. No city business can be conducted, so fire department, no business meeting that night until after elections, after 8. So
Can we
nobody
have a day off?
can't hold any city meetings at night.
And our next Meet the Candidates is this Thursday, November 1st. 7:30? Is that?
I think so.
7:30 to 9:30 or something. Yep. So that is also here. So come on out, meet your next potential city council members. Is there any acknowledgements?
I'd like to thank Mr. Otto again for the years that he served here at Montrose Fire Department. He will be missed. And then thank you very much, Kevin, for doing what you're doing for working on getting new firefighter recruitment.
Yeah, good job bringing potential 5 more. I do want to acknowledge the Montrose Days Committee. It is a brand new board, and they had to hit the ground running with their first event was their Halloween dance. They did a good job. They had pretty good turnout, so I want to thank those guys who was on that board. Jennifer Anderson, Terry Vanderbeek, trying to blank, Ben.
Joe.
Joe Von Thomas is there, Melanie Estes.
And then Christine.
Oswald.
Yes.
All right, and I also want to thank Joe Menard for doing the first Meet the Candidates last Monday. That's all I got today. Anybody else?
It's good.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Have a good night.
If anybody wants some 9-volt batteries, help me out and take some.
Sheldon, don't follow the letter.
We still get it.